Hello and thank you for watching this video. So, in this video, I'm going to be doing an in-depth Bible study of Hebrews chapter 9, verses 11 through 28. So if you have your Bibles, or you can go to Bible.com or Bible Hub or BibleGateway.com, just read through verses 11 through 28. And what I did was I got a few different color highlighters and I got a pen, and the things that are important I'm going to underline, and then the things that are very important to me I'm going to circle. And so starting at verse 11, it says, "But when Christ appeared as high priest," I'm underlining, Christ appeared as high priest, "of the good things that have come, then through the great," I'm underlining, "greater and more perfect tent, not made by human hands, that is," and then I'm circling, "not of this creation." And these things are important to me because Christ is now he appeared as the high priest, whereas normally people would take their sacrifices and they would go to the priest to make the sin offerings and the different offerings, but now Christ is that offering. Okay, so now we're going to verse 12, and it says, "He entered once," and then I'm circling "for all, into the high places, not by means of blood of goats and calves, but by means of his own blood," so I'm circling own blood, "thus securing an eternal redemption." So, okay, now I am taking a highlighter, and in this case I'm taking orange, and I'm going to go with the first verse, so verse 11 that I highlighted, or that I underlined, and I'm highlighting all the places that I underlined and I circled in the first verse. Now you can do this however you want. You could do colors by different themes. You can do like I'm doing here. I'm just rotating different colors per verse or per couple verses. So now I'm taking my pen and I'm writing, "Christ is the high priest. He was not created," because I circled the portion where it was not of this creation, because Christ is not created. Okay, so I'm taking my highlighter and now I am going around what I just wrote to kind of, so I know that this section is with the orange highlighted area. I'm taking my highlighter, now I'm highlighting in a different color, verse 12. Okay, now I'm taking my pen and I'm writing, "Christ was the sacrifice once and for all." So his blood paid the price so that we wouldn't have to make these sacrifices for each little thing. So like a sin offering or a burnt offering, because he was that offering. His blood that was shed was the sacrifice once and for all. Okay, now I'm just going around what I wrote with the pen, and then I am writing over here, "He shed his blood for eternal redemption for us." And now I am taking my blue highlighter and I'm just going to go around the things that I just wrote, so I know that these notes are for what I just for the blue highlighted area that I just did. Alright, now I'm getting my pen back out and I'm going to verse 13. I'm underlining "sanctify, for the blood of goats and bulls and the sprinkling defiled persons with the ashes of the heifer. Sanctify for the purification of the flesh." So I'm underlining "sanctify" and "purification of the flesh." Now I'm going to verse 14. Oh, I'm taking my highlighter, highlighting this, and then I'm going to go to verse 14. And since there wasn't much that I highlighted in verse 13, I'm going to use the same color for verse 14. So I'm getting my pen again, and I'm underlining "how much," circling "more, will the blood circling blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God. Purify our conscience from the dead works to serve the living God. And I'm underlining conscience from the dead works to serve the living God. So I'm taking the highlighter and I'm highlighting all the things that I underlined. Now I am taking the pen and I am writing, Christ offered himself without blemish. He became the perfect sacrifice, and there is no need for any more. Then I'm going to take my highlighter again and I am going to highlight around what I just wrote, so I know that these notes are with that color that I just did. Okay, so I'm getting my pen again and I'm going to verse 15, where it says, therefore he is the mediator of the new covenant, so that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, since a death has occurred that redeems them from the transgressions under the first covenant. So I'm underlining mediator, new covenant, called, may receive the promised eternal inheritance, and I'm underlining redeems. I'm also underlining transgressions committed, and then first covenant. And then I'm taking a new highlighter, different color, and I'm highlighting, therefore he is the mediator of the new covenant. So I'm highlighting most of this verse, and I'm also highlighting redeems, transgressions committed, and then first covenant. And then I'm going back to my pen. So then I'm writing new covenant through Jesus. The old covenant was through Moses. And then I'm going to take my highlighter and highlights around what I wrote. So now getting my pen and I'm underlining, and I'm reading verse 16, 17, and 18 together. And I'm underlining will is involved, death. One who made it must be established. Takes effect, death, one, alive. First covenant, inaugurated without blood. And then I'm taking my highlighter and I'm highlighting all of 16, 17, and 18 because it is I think that these verses are very important. So it says, for where a will is involved, the death of one who made it must be established. For a will takes effect only at death, since it is not a force as long as the one who made it is alive. Therefore, not even the first covenant is inaugurated without blood. So this is pretty much saying that blood had to be shed, that someone or something had to die. Blood had to be shed to cover those sins. And we know that that perfect sacrifice was Jesus. So I took with my pen and I wrote blood had to be shed. All right, now going to the next verse, verse 19, I am underlining blood of calves and goats, water, scarlet wool, hyssop, sprinkled both the book itself, and I'm also highlighting in verse 20, 21, and 22. It says, this is the blood, the covenant that God commanded for you. And then I'm underlining in verse 21, both are blood, both vessels used in worship, under the law, everything purified. I'm circling purified, and then blood without the shedding of blood, and then I'm circling there is no forgiveness of sins. So now I'm just taking a highlighter and I'm highlighting all the things that I underlined, and then now I'm writing there had to be bloodshed to cover sins, even in the Old Testament or Old Covenant. Jesus shed his blood So there would be no need for other sacrifices, because we know that he led a sinless life. He was that perfect lamb. He was that sacrifice for us. And then I'm going down to verse 24, 25, and 26, and I'm highlighting. So, underlining, I'm underlining Christ has entered. Okay, so I'm just going to read everything and then tell you what I highlighted and circled. All right, so starting at verse 24. For Christ has entered not into holy places made with hands, which are copies of the true things, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God on our behalf, nor was it to offer himself repeatedly, as a high priest enters the holy place every year with blood not his own, for then he would have to suffer repeatedly since the foundation of the earth. But as it is, he has appeared once and for all, the end of the ages, to put away sins by the sacrifice of himself. So this is really explaining why Christ shed his blood, and that he doesn't have to keep coming back and shedding his blood over and over and over again, because his sacrifice was the ultimate sacrifice. And so I underlined Christ has entered. I underlined holy place made with human hands, copies, true things, heaven itself, appeared in the presence of God. And then I circled on our behalf, and I underlined nor offered himself repeatedly, enters every year, blood not his own. He would have to suffer repeatedly. I underlined foundation of the world, appeared once, and then I circled for all at, and then I underlined put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. So for this, I then took a highlighter and highlighted all the places that I underlined and circled. And then I took my pen again and I wrote, Christ's blood is sufficient and paid the price for all sin once and for all. And then I went on to verse 27 and 28, which is the last two verses. And I'm just going to read them and tell you what I highlighted. So, starting at verse 27, it says, and just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment, so Christ, have been offered once to bear the sins for many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. And so with this, I underlined appointed, died once, comes judgment. I underlined Christ, offered once to bear the sins for many, second time, and then I circled not to deal with sin, and then I circled save, and then I underlined who are eagerly awaiting for him. So then I took my other highlighter and I highlighted all these places, and then with my pen I wrote, Amen, thank you, Jesus. And then I highlighted what I wrote. So I feel like this chapter in Hebrews just really explains Christ, explains his death and what it truly meant. So I hope that this has helped you in some way. I hope this has edified you, and I hope that you really got something out of it. I hope it encourages you to dig into your word, and thank you so much for watching this video.